excited to introduce you to the CEO of Satori, Chengxi Wang. Hi, Chengxi. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, really excited to have you join us at the Type 3D Printing Conference. But before we do that, we really want to learn about your story. What got you into 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and propelled you into this entrepreneurial career?
So I guess everyone who is currently in 3D printing has a very different background because it's a very new industry by itself. And for me, I didn't come from engineering. I was studying finance and investment. But on the other hand, I was professionally trained as a musician for over 10 years. So taking those two parts, one is creative, the other is more about business. And I was always looking, how can I combine both together? And one thing that I definitely want to do is to empower creativity to make more impact. And by chance, I discovered 3D printing. And I thought to myself, that's perfect because on the one hand, you do allow people to be more creative with this technology. But on the other hand, what do people do with the technology? Normally, it's surprisingly impactful because they can produce things that you traditionally cannot produce by outsourcing to factory. So that's I think it's serendipity, but surprisingly it fits so well with my background and my passion.
That's fantastic. And what was the first thing you've ever printed, just out of curiosity?
The first thing I ever printed is actually a bracelet. And actually I have it just by myself. And this is printed out of Satori. But the first time that I have the idea to print a bracelet is it's during the lockdown, and I want to produce a prototype of bracelet. And I asked a lot of 3D printing platform, and they told me that unfortunately I cannot produce the interconnected locks. As you can see, it's an articulate format. It's like a Pandora. So each is a triangle and lock with each other. And they said it can only produce 6 interconnected locks. And I thought that was the limit of the current technology for now. But when we're developing Satori machine, and I think why not take it as a challenge to experiment how we can actually produce one interconnected bracelet as a whole. And after trial and error, I was able to print it out. So it was a very satisfying experience in the way that it does fulfill the mission of 3D printing to push the limit of possibility.
That's fascinating. And going from investment, jumping into creativity and merging it with emerging technologies, and now starting your own 3D printer and overcoming some of these challenges. What are some other challenges you see additive manufacturing needs to overcome for us to get to different levels of production or finishing or volume? Just curious, what's your perspective?
I think there are 2 components in this game. One is from the manufacturer side. So definitely we need to improve the machine, not just about the printing capacity, but also the user experience. And different type of 3D printer has its own pain point. For example, the kind of a machine we're producing, resin printer, you have to handle the liquid resin. And how can we make the whole user journey as smooth as possible? Will push more people accepting this concept. And on the other hand, it's from the consumer, but it's also related to the additive manufacturing industry is because consumers do not know too much. And it's in some level, people working in this industry need to take the responsibility to educate. And that's why I find this conference is so important because it's almost like consolidate the voice and to send a very strong message that there's so many people passionate to push the voice out there. And the education in particular is about the creativity. I personally always encounter this challenge when I ask people, what would you like to 3D print? Here we have a machine. All you have to do is to come up with the idea, just to let your imagination flow. And people will always pause and came back to us saying, actually, I don't know. And that's actually the problem because you see before 3D printing became the norm, most of the technology is presented as end product. And the end consumer didn't participate in too much in the creative process. They just consume what is presented there. But 3D printing is a very interactive process. People who consume the product, they have a say about how it has to be designed. So that's why we need both the manufacturer to make the machine, the software material as user-friendly as possible, but from the user perspective, they need to allow themselves to dare to dream and dare to create.
So you touched on a very interesting point, creativity and working that magic. Is that something you're born with, or is there a process to enable creativity? Like if someone has an idea, but they don't
Mm,
feel that, they don't feel confident in their creativity levels, do you have any
mm.
recommendations as to what they can do to bring that out?
I think I personally went through this very challenging process where I think every creative person have this bottleneck where they find that their creativity is running low. But I think creativity actually goes with the discipline. And what I would recommend people who want to let their creativity flourish is actually to make effort to do something on a routine basis. And for me, it's very helpful in the morning. Sometimes I write down my thoughts, and sometimes I just meditate about something that I truly care about. So creativity first comes from discipline. You have to dive deeper with one direction constantly. And on the other hand, you have to let yourself to ask the key question, what you truly concerned about. Creativity is about solve the problem, whether it's about a product problem or your personal life problem. When you truly get to the point of the challenge, then the creativity flourish. So I do not recommend people to pursue creativity for a sense of wow people, because that will never happen. You have to actually go internally to figure what truly concerns you and then do it in a disciplined way.
So discipline's the way to go. Thanks for that tip. And when you're creating new technology, I'm sure failure is just very normal day-to-day process. How have you turned failure into success?
It's actually so right that on a daily basis, you have to force yourself to encounter failure. Let's phrase it this way. Because I think for 3D printing technology, it's really about pushing the limit of possibility. If you don't encounter failure, that means you're just stay static. You're not making any progress. And one example could be the material exploration. So I think even people who are not working in this industry, they understand that material is a key challenge, because no matter how good the print quality is, if it only can print plastic, then it would limit its usage. So for Satori, we do really want to explore a broad range of material. And one direction is the flexible material compared to the rigid plastic one. And here I actually have an example. So this is like a stress ball. It's a fully printed by Satori machine with a flexible material. But this is a very big piece. And initially, this material is only suitable for printing very small area. As you can see, the pink part in the teeth model, can you see clearly from your side? And it's almost like your nails size. And that's used to replace the glue that dentists use to anchor individual tooth to the teeth model. And when we first find this material and we ask ourselves, can it be used for other print? And that evolves this big challenge. How can we handle the monster of this material? And initially, when we try just to print the same setting as the rigid material that we normally do, we failed epically. The problem is with the flexible material, it's a sticker. So when the machine, the 3D printer is moving, it constantly stick to the resin tank, and it just can pull the already print out of the print bed, which is very frustrating. But after we rethink about the design, we solve several key points to make it print smoothly, such as add the smart support, and also in order to reduce the suction on the printing platform, we designed several pinholes to equalize the pressure. And so finally, we're able to print this big piece. And this was actually part of the partnership project with the designer, which is the stress ball, because now when everyone's working from home, the mental health is very important. So we do want to print out something beyond just the industry use in the dentistry, but something that when people have the machine, they can print something useful in their life. And that's an example how we convert the challenge of a failure into a success. And the success doesn't stay within the initial plan. We're not just to go vertically deeper into the dentistry, but expand broadly what this could be possible for other industry. And I think that's a very satisfying experience. Once you recognize when you push the limit, you can achieve a surprising outcome you didn't expect before.
That's very interesting. And the feedback loop that you have between you as the manufacturer and the designer to come up with different ways to help close that gap is probably really important as part of the process of overcoming some roadblocks that you guys might hit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in some ways now with the COVID restriction, people are used to chat online, and it's very helpful. Like when we're doing the project, we're chat constantly with the designer, and this is how it works, and what is your design purpose, and how can we explore together to find the best solution. You're right, it's definitely very important to close the gap, and the interaction is the key.
What are the future developments you're excited about in additive manufacturing beyond the materials getting to a certain level?
I think that should be the integration of different components in the chain, and ideally form an ecosystem. So for example, now we're talking about the technology itself, just about the print, but in order for 3D printing technology to be massively adopted for business use, we need to work with the data management system and potentially use other technology like AI. For example, like I mentioned, for 3D printing, the setting is very important. And how can we use AI to identify the pattern of successful print and then automatically optimize the design, the printing setting in the future, so that it can really bring a lot of efficiency for business. And let alone the collaboration between materials, software, and post-processing. If we can make a really strong ecosystem, I think the whole industry will be very promising for further potential.
Has there been any kind of technology you've seen in the market that has done that today? I think I've only seen Velo3D with their Sapphire technology, but nothing in the resin space. Is that right?
Not yet. That's for resin, I think first from the printing process, the slicing, it is still in the stage of the designing. And I think for FDM, we all know Cura, this slicer is quite popular. But for the resin part, we're still finding the best slicer in the market. And also regarding the management system, in FDM, you already have those sort of, you probably heard about management system where schools or companies can adopt to supervise several 3D printers. But when it comes to resin 3D printer, first installing the camera in the machine can also be a challenge because you're touching the liquid resin, unlike the solid, the material used in FDM machine. So there are some very special features coming with the resin machine that need special treatment. And I think the end goal is the same, to put them into integrated experience, but the approach, I think it will be very different. We cannot use the same thinking process as we did with FDM.
Really excited to see what you end up coming up with at Satori. Well, let's say if someone wanted to follow your footsteps, start a 3D printer company, launch a jewelry company, as I could see you do on the side as well, or explore new technologies and try to create new products. What are some of the tips that you can share to someone that wants to follow in your footsteps?
I think there are 3 advice I would give to people, whoever they want to do something that they're passionate about and build it solidly step by step. The first is embrace the chaos. And we always want to organize things nicely, and we're always wait for the perfect moment to do things. But I think chaos is the key whenever you want to do something on your own, especially for technology industry. When it's changing so fast, you have to adapt yourself to the changing landscape and learn from these changes and embrace it. And the second is about the mindset. You need to be really open-minded. For 3D printing in particular, you have to understand what's going on in the vast range of industry, because ultimately 3D printing is just a tool, and you have to solve the pain point that your end user is used in whatever industry they're in. So you have to change yourself into some way polymath, like you know sort of things in different areas, then connect the dots to make things happen. And the third advice would be, I think, be patient. Although we know 3D printing or technology in general is changing very fast, but for any big promising technology to really go into the public and go into like what we hoped many years ago, every household, it is a very, very long journey. And the speed is counterintuitively very slow in the beginning. And how can we do things in the right way and patient enough and believe in the future will grow very strongly. It's really a mentality, have to be patient and do the right thing. So to summarize, I think it's really three things: embrace the chaos and keep your open mind, and then to be patient.
Well, thank you so much, Chengxi, for sharing those 3 tips. I hope everyone could do that, embrace that chaos, keep an open mind, and be patient, because any kind of new technology being introduced doesn't happen overnight, and we know that.
Yeah. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you very much. Is there any last word you want to share with our community?
Well, first, apparently, come to this conference because it's a really very amazing event. We have already started to network with each other as speakers, and you see those excellent women from different industries were passionate about the same thing, but were so different. And during the pre-conversation, even before the conference started, I already feel very excited to know more of them. So I think it's definitely a very inspiring event, and I would like to invite as many people to the event as possible. And also, another thing is that whoever you are and whatever industry you're working at, maybe you're not working 3D printing industry right now, but please adopt this mindset of open-mindedness and to be adventurous as possible, because that's a spirit of 3D printing.
Well, thank you so much. Let's keep pushing that spirit on and light that fire in everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us at the Women in 3D Printing podcast type series. If you like the content, please hit that subscribe button, follow us on LinkedIn or other social media platforms.
We'd also like to give a shout out to our platinum sponsors, HP, Trump, GE Additive, Matter Hackers, and Dassault for making all of this even possible.
And feel free to drop us a line if you have any questions or feedback.